Now, Trump spokeswoman Katrina Pierson has said a lot of ridiculous things on behalf of Donald Trump. Now, her latest bout of verbal diarrhea happened on CNN with Wolf Blitzer, and it involved, once again, Trump's continuing feud with the family of Humayun Khan and his father, Khizr Khan. Now, I want to show you a video clip of this. Let's take a look.
But surely you can understand the confusion, considering how Donald Trump never voted for the Iraq war. Hillary Clinton did. And then she didn't support the troops to have what they need. It was under Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton that changed the rules of engagements that probably cost his life. So I don't understand why it's so hard to understand why Donald Trump was confused about why he was being held responsible for something he had nothing to do with.
Well, wait a minute. So Donald Trump doesn't seem to be the only one that's confused right there. See, you're also confused because there's a little bit of a problem. See, while it's fashionable to blame Obama for everything that's gone wrong within the last 8 years, well, 2004 wasn't exactly within his tenure. See, the reason that I mentioned 2004 because that was the year that Humayun Khan was killed by a car bomb. See, during that time, yes, Clinton was a senator, and yes, she did vote for the Iraq War. However, Barack Obama, was not even a senator. He was still like a community organizer somewhere in Chicago. So wait, how did exactly did Obama and Clinton, how did they change the rules of engagement back then? Did they both conspire to get into a time machine and go back in time to 2004 to make sure that Khan was killed, so that all the way now in 2016, Khizr Khan would be able to go up and make an anti-Trump speech on behalf of Barack Obama's former opponent, Hillary Clinton? Look, all you got to do is just add in the Bilderbergs and some lizard people, and Alex Jones would be all over it, man. All over it. Sky Alex written all over it, man. InfoWars. Anyway, look, this is a good example of Obama derangement syndrome, which is also being combined into Clinton derangement syndrome. Look, I've got a lot of issues with Hillary Clinton, especially when it comes to her vote for war in Iraq. It was a terrible vote, and I think it showed a lack of judgment on her part. Now, to be fair, George W. Bush and the Republicans also pushed for that war. They also lied to a lot of members of Congress who did vote for this war. Now, Bernie Sanders, bless his heart, he saw past the bullshit. And he said, no, I will not vote for Iraq. I don't care. I'm not going to vote for it. I don't care if it makes me the least popular senator in the Senate. I'm not voting for it. He made the right call. And he was right from the beginning. Hillary Clinton, not so much. But look, you can't blame the entire death on just Hillary Clinton. And certainly not on Barack Obama. You've got to know who to blame for what. And most of that blame is shifted onto the administration of George W. Bush. Now, why do I say this? Because the Republicans are the reason we went to Iraq. But look, I've also got to throw some shade on the Democrats who voted for it as well. But to tie that in with the ridiculous assumption that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama crippled our military in 2004 while the Republicans were in power, and that's what ended up killing Captain Khan, that's ridiculous. That is stupid. That is dumb. And you know what? I just explained Katrina Pierson. Now, anyway, to be fair, I'm going to be fair to her, okay, after I just called her dumb. I'm going to show her where she comes back and gives sort of a Trump-style apology. Take a look at that.
Katrina, do you want to apologize to Mr. Khan?
Apologize for the timeline. What I was talking about is the fact that Donald Trump has no connection to anything having to do with Captain Khan, who was a brave war hero. The timeline is very simple and true, Allison. Hillary Clinton voted for the war in Iraq. She did not support the surge. Barack Obama made things worse by invading more countries than President Bush did. They did change the rules of engagement and got tens of thousands of soldiers that were killed.
But he was killed in 2004 when George W. Bush was president.
Allison, may I
But
chime
Donald
in,
Trump
please?
wasn't there. That is the only point. That is the only point. Donald Trump is being blamed for something he had nothing to do with, and he did not attack this
but you
family.
were blaming
he just
President
simply
Obama.
said, I had
These are the
nothing to
words,
do with
Katrina,
this.
the words that you used probably cost his life. President Obama and Hillary Clinton changed the rules of engagement that probably cost his life. You do acknowledge now that you were just wrong.
Well, absolutely. That's why I use probably, because I was just going through the timeline. Because since then, we have had tens of thousands of soldiers that have been lost, 1 million wounded, $6 trillion later. How can we possibly put any of the onus on Donald Trump? It is absolutely absurd. And that's why you see all this confusion surrounding this issue, because Donald Trump had absolutely nothing to do with it.
But no one was blaming Donald Trump for Captain Khan's death. You were blaming President Obama, and he wasn't president yet.
No, I was talking about Hillary Clinton specifically voting for the war, and that was during that time period.
Katrina, you acknowledge you got it wrong.
Donald Trump did not vote for that war, period.
Donald Trump,
That
in
war
an
did not
interview in
happen because of
2000,
Donald Trump at all.
he said he was supportive of the war before the invasion.
He
It was
did
only,
not
he
vote
absolutely
for the war.
said
He did
was
not
supportive.
choose
He couldn't
to
have
send
voted.
troops.
He was a private person.
He was a private person.
then.
Barack
wasn't
Obama
in
did not
Congress
vote
or
for
That's
the
my
president.
point, Allison. That's my point. That's why this is a ridiculous conversation. Donald Trump had nothing to do with sending troops like Captain Khan into Iraq to begin with.
Nor
That's
did he
the
have
only
anything to
point
do
here.
with opposing it until after the war had begun and wasn't going well.
But it doesn't matter. He had nothing to do with this war that sent Captain Khan over there.
Okay, so look, there's a lot to unpack there. But first, I want to address something. It's onus, not onerous. It bugs me every time I hear that clip. Anyway, so look, aside from that little grammar nitpick, which by the way, I'm not always the best at grammar, so glass houses. Anyway, who is exactly blaming Trump? There's nobody that's blaming Trump for the Iraq War. And look, rightly so, Hillary Clinton, you can blame Hillary Clinton for voting for the war in Iraq. As I just established that earlier in the segment, she does not get credit, okay? She made a bad decision, and so did a lot of other senators, and so did the administration, the Bush administration, the Democrats that voted for the war. All of them get no credit, okay? It was a wrong decision. It was a bad decision. That, as she pointed out, the stats, trillions of dollars in debt, which, by the way, later on, people in the Republican administration will then attribute to Barack Obama. That $6 trillion in debt. But wait, that's not his $6 trillion. Bush charged it to a credit card, and then when Obama went through and basically added that to the national debt. Because, guess what? That was our debt from the Iraq War. But anyway, the thousands of people that were killed in Iraq, not to mention the thousands, hundreds of thousands of civilians killed in Iraq. You also had innocent people who were targeted with drone strikes. I mean, all that stuff was released with Chelsea Manning when she leaked a bunch of information to WikiLeaks, who then, showed us what our government was actually doing in Iraq, killing innocent people. I mean, that Apache video was awful. So look, a lot of things that led from the Iraq War are terrible. Nobody's blaming Donald Trump for that. Obviously, he had nothing to do with that. He couldn't have voted for it. So saying that he couldn't have voted for the war really doesn't mean a whole lot. Well, Donald Trump didn't vote for the war. Yeah, it's because he wasn't in office. But to be fair, he did kind of support the war before and then came out against it later. Let me give you some details about that. You see, in a radio interview with Howard Stern on September 11th, 2002, a little more than 6 months before the war was starting, so you had a bunch of war drums that are being drummed up by the media, etc., and the administration. Stern asked Trump if he supported going to a war with Iraq. Trump hesitantly responded, yeah, I guess so. I mean, there's something going on there, so, and it's obviously there's something bad. I mean, that's Trump, right? Trump fashion. Answered in Trump fashion. But look, later on, he started getting concerned about the financial cost of the war. And in July 2003, he said he wished the money being spent in Iraq could have been spent in New York City. Okay, that's not a bad position. Then by November, he was talking about the tremendous cost of the war and the very, very unpleasant surprises in Iraq. And of course, the rest is history. By 2004, he was squarely against the war in Iraq. But see, it's kind of easy to look back on something that's obviously not going well, that was obviously a mistake in the first place, which was the entire Iraq war. When you look at it in hindsight, well, you know what they say, hindsight is 20/20, right? Well, and you look at all the terrible things that have come from it, and the fact that they had no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, you can easily look back and say, holy shit, yeah, that was a bad idea, man. That was awful. We shouldn't have went there. But see, Donald Trump, in saying that he was against the war the whole time, disingenuous. He was lukewarm at first about, yeah, I guess. I mean, we could go into Iraq. That'd be all right. I mean, doesn't really matter to me all that much. And then later on, lukewarm against it, and then totally against it. So it's not exactly a good track record. But look, let's be fair and say that there was sufficient evidence that he saw that changed his mind. Look, there's a lot of people out there that were for the war at first because they fell for the lies of the Bush administration, and then later on saw what a terrible mistake it was and said, boy, I am not against that, or I'm not for that. I am totally against that. That's okay. That's fair. But what you can't do as Donald Trump is go out and criticize her for that, for doing the same thing, for being for the war, for voting for the war, and then turning around and saying, you know what, that was a terrible idea, as Hillary Clinton had done. And then saying, well, look at her, she voted for the terrible war. Well, Donald, my guess is that if you had been an elected official, based on your past support, you might have done the same thing. So it's a bit hypocritical to go out there and say, Hillary Clinton, terrible decision, when you might have made that same decision by yourself. I'm just saying. But anyway, with that all said, one thing that Katrina Pierson is completely 100% right about is the fact that this entire conversation is ridiculous. Donald Trump is sitting there attacking this family over the Iraq war. Yes, they made a speech against him. That's because Donald Trump wants to ban people like Khizr Khan and his son, who served and died in the military, from coming into the country. Well, if that's not enough to make a speech against Donald Trump, I don't know what is. So they were right to do that because of one of Donald Trump's policy positions. Not because they hate Donald Trump, not because they wanted to stir up this shit. It's because, hey, this policy would have kept my son out and us out. And my son is a patriot. He died for this country. What have you done? That's a completely valid thing to attack him on that. Especially when Donald Trump says that his personal Vietnam, after he got 5 deferments, 4 school, 1 medical for bone spurs in his feet, that ended up healing up pretty good, by the way. He seems to walk just fine. He's got a super clean bill of health, right? When saying that his personal Vietnam was avoiding STDs. You can't go and disparage a family and their military service like that and ask questions of Ghazala Khan. Why couldn't she speak? Must because she's a Muslim. But if I had it my way, I'd keep them all out. You don't do that. Donald Trump started this fight. Donald Trump needs to finish it and move on. Because it's not going to get any better. It's going to get much worse for him.